Ladies and gentlemen, so with patch 21.2 this morning, we got a few champion buffs to add additional kind of like shock resistance mechanics and ways to mitigate shock damage. And to give you kind of the headline, 6 champions have received kind of new abilities that help mitigate shock. 3 of them are absolutely rubbish. The 4 Jane Foster and Nebula ones are not too bad. They're pretty useful, but the Electro one is really good. So to headline that, but the Storm one and both of the Thor ones, they really suck, and they're just not really like that effective at all after this morning's testing. So in today's video, we're going to break down, exactly what has changed and also show a few matchups of these brand new synergies and abilities that the characters have on them. So yeah, to talk about the new shock interactions, the Thor Jane Foster one reduces shock damage by 70%. It kind of feels like a little bit more than this, but especially with willpower, this is very nice. This is a really nice mastery. It'd be nice if she was completely shock immune along with the other 4 characters, but Thor Jane Foster's at 70% appears to be kind of so effective that it's just a really nice increase to the character. Thor, kind of the classic OG version, will reduce shock damage by 40%, which is, it's not worthless, but it's not really enough to like properly mitigate the damage in some of the testing that we've done. And yeah, I'll show you just like a 4-star one getting absolutely rinsed still to shock damage. And Thor Ragnarok, instead of the amount of damage, he has the duration reduced, which still, really isn't helping anybody there too much. So yeah, Thor Ragnarok just doesn't work too well. Nebula's one is okay, and I think if we get certain shock matchups in the future, or maybe if she like gets clipped to like a Red Skull special 2, or like another Nebula has some electrostatic charges and she accidentally gets the parry, this is going to be great. But she can shrug up to 3 shock debuffs in a fight, which kind of the overall problem is that is not many shock debuffs in a fight, so it kind of depends on the matchup and what's going on. But this one very quickly will become useless. You don't have a lot you can really do with this one. But I think one of the potential pros is if we do have some shocking robots that Nebula can go up against, she can instantly gain those 5 electro shock charges when she shrugs off a shock debuff. So just shrugging off 1 will instantly shut down a robot in terms of ability accuracy reduction. So that's a good little synergy there. Something that might be useful in the future. If you could bring Nebula into the final chapter variant, this would be pretty good. I think even for variant chapter 2, this might have some interesting uses there. So yeah, it's alright. Nebula's isn't too bad, so it's something just to bear in mind that the character can now do. And then we have Electro, who is by far the best one. Electro has been so pimped out against shock champions, which again, there's a very small number of champions currently in the game that do have shock effects, and a very small amount of nodes as well. But Electro takes 0 damage from shock effects. He is completely immune to the damage. However, each shock active on Electro, so he's still going to take the debuffs, is going to give him plus 20% attack, plus 15% static shock damage, and plus 15% energy resistance. So he gains a lot more attack, a lot more damage back, especially on the parries and direct hits, more energy resistance as well, which could come in handy for certain nodes and scenarios. And also enemy shock effects gain plus 55% ability accuracy, so they've got an increased chance to trigger on Electro, and they're going to last longer, which is nothing but a good thing, because shock effects are purely a positive for Electro. And also the additional good synergy with the willpower mastery, which allows him to get all of this stuff plus a little bit of healing. So Electro is pretty much the shock god now, so really great stuff there. And then finally we have Storm. So Storm receives up to 60% shock resistance based on the amount of stored power. So even at 100% power, she is not immune to shock, and I think shock resistance is the chance for shock to apply on her or something like that. But even at full power, it just doesn't work. It's just not really that great. It's not effective. She's still taking full damage, but also she has a slight benefit of, while suffering from a shock debuff, her special damage is increased by 30%. In my opinion, Storm, being the level of character that she is, should have got exactly the same treatment as Electro, had full shock immunity, and got like a solid increase boost to her attack. You know, it's a little bit silly because Storm's it just doesn't work out very well, man. She just gets absolutely melted still by shock debuffs. So yeah, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, now that we've talked about that, let's showcase some of the matchups and, you know, explain about what we are talking so far so you can see, you know, exactly how good some of these buffs and changes are. Now, let's start off by showcasing the Nebula one. So this is, she will absorb 3 shocks and convert them into 5 electrostatic charges. So what we're trying to do in this matchup, and I think a really, really good testing ground for kind of shock resistance, is dueling out kind of a maxed Thor Ragnarok with Suicide Masteries, because the shocks you're going to see in some matchups are so strong. So we've been really putting some of the champions to the test here. So here we are pushing Thor Ragnarok to his special 3 so we can activate his shock mode, take a load of shocks, convert those all into electrostatic charges, and then fire them back at him with a special 2. You know, just to test this out a little bit here. So, you know, we take the special 3. The special 3 damage against Thor is capped out at 20% of your max health. So yeah, we've taken a few shocks already. You can see we're up to 14 charges here. We parry, get 14 stacks of shocks, special 2 to double it, and he is dead. But we took, you know, a lot of damage in the process, man. A lot of damage from shock and block. So yeah, it does make me a little bit cynical that Nebula is going to work as a good option for longer fights, but I still think she's going to have her uses, and it's a very nice little bonus for certain matchups for the character, and that special 2, man, is very fun to fire off. So Nebula gets a nod of approval, but I wish she could just infinitely absorb the shocks. That'd be a great time. Next up, we've got the Electro showcase. I've got a couple of different fights of Electro, one versus Thor Ragnarok in the dueling, and then I also went into Act 5 with my rank 3 Electro to fight a really stacked Thor Ragnarok on a brute force node, just to see, you know, how he could compare with a slightly larger health pool of about 70,000, because this one, man, you're going to see once you start getting those charges, man, the attack just absolutely flies up, and it's very fun. So we're pushing him to the special 3 because we want to activate his lightning phase so we can start getting shocked. Thor Ragnarok is charging up his special 3, and again, you can only take a max of 20% of your max health as damage from this, so you're fairly safe if you're at high health from dying from it. Then we quickly bait out heavy attack and go in. You see pretty much every single hit in this matchup because of the ability accuracy increase. We are almost getting shocked every single hit, and then we retaliate with like a 13k special 2, which is nuts, mate. Absolutely nuts. Consider with the special 2, we got no team synergy, we got the class disadvantage, and we are not even in Assassin's range. That is just some crazy damage from a rank 3 science character. So after that duel, man, I was like, we need a more stacked Thor Ragnarok, so I went into Act 5 to take the one in 5.4.4 in the MODOK chapter. It's the 3rd enemy on the brute force path, to test him out, because this one has about 5 times the amount of health as the dueling one. So I thought this might be, you know, a little bit of a fun showcase here, just trying to play cleverly to try and get into the special 3, and we managed to trigger it. And I think one of the interesting things that is, you know, worth noting on this fight is how effective the willpower mastery is, and just, you know, how much of a nice little bonuses it is in the Thor Ragnarok versus Electro matchups, because that shock, man, it's all healing now, it's all healing. So yeah, very nice. And again, we are just soaking up those shock stacks, a crazy nice amount of damage there. We get a very nice crit off the first one of just under 12,000 there. Go in for another one, and our base attacks, you know, we're not seeing anything like super crazy, but for a 330 with the class disadvantage, like, some really nice damage here. Just got a fantastic row of crits there. The damage is just ramping up. We just need to play very aggressively. But at this point as well, his shock aura has faded. So I'm going to try and get him to another special 3. But also, if you look at the health bar now, you know, we've almost regen. We took a load of block damage there, but we're very close to regenning up to full. Just with a little bit of willpower. So yeah, not a bad little interaction there. Certainly did appreciate that one. Right, we're going to take another special 3, and then we are looking to finish the fight. In that Electro charge phase, I think we dealt about 40,000 damage in 43 hits, so, you know, not too bad at all, and also avoided all of the shock damage, so that was, you know, fairly decent there. We're going to fire off a special 2, we got 7k there, only had 4 stacks of shock on us though, so not a huge attack bonus at that point in time. And then the matchup is pretty much in the bag. Final combo, straight into a special one, and there we go. Thor Ragnarok is down. So yeah, praise be Electro, man. Great buff. Maybe this is going to be a bit more practically useful in the future. Now, next up we have the Thor Jane Foster one, which turns out to be actually quite effective at mitigating a lot of the shock damage. So we're going to show this one, and then we're going to show the other three, which just suck. And you might, you know, after seeing the other three clips, you're going to be like, oh, you know, maybe Thor Jane Foster isn't that bad in comparison. But I think, you know, Electro is just the absolute king of absorbing shock. But, you know, Thor Jane Foster is definitely going to reduce quite a bit of the damage as well. So we've got Thor Ragnarok to 53%. We trigger the ultimate here, getting smacked around a little bit. He activates his Thunder phase now, and you can see we're only taking about 32, 44 per tick, so not an insane amount of damage. Definitely our health is going down a little bit, but you know, you're going to see on the other characters, man, how quickly their health pool drops when you do not have this level of shock resistance. So this one is alright. Again, it's certainly not the best and nowhere near as effective and reliable as Electro's, but it's okay, man. You know, it reduces quite a bit of the damage taken and is overall just practically quite effective to use. So maybe, you know, if you have that awakened for Jane Foster, it might not be the worst thing in the world. Who knows? Storm increases shock resistance by 60% based on stored power, so here you can see we're at 75% power. We take a special 3 and activate his shock phase. Bearing in mind as well, he's got 20% reduced attack because of the class disadvantage, so we should take even less damage, but even, you know, with one stack, man, we're getting absolutely mullered. When we get a few stacks, our health is just dropping, and then, yeah, just could not survive long at all, man. That barely did anything there. Was just a little bit rubbish, lads. A little bit rubbish. Just got wrecked. This is OG Thor versus Thor Ragnarok. So we got the special 3. He's got minus 40% shock damage, but you can see, man, it's still a lot of shock damage that adds up very, very quickly. So he melts as well. Then finally, we've got Thor Ragnarok, who has minus 40% shock duration. So, you know, this one probably isn't going to surprise too many people here. But he also melts as well, just very, very quickly. Well, that is the end of today's Shock Champion Buff comparison video. Hopefully, you know, you enjoyed kind of seeing all these matchups and finding out who is actually good against Shock Champions after this. But, you know, just one thing to keep in mind is at the moment, we really have a very, very small amount of scenarios where Shock debuffs are actually relevant. And I think that's maybe going to be one of the themes next year, is more super fun Shock characters coming in. It might also be worth noting that Korg is completely immune to shock as well, so, you know, just as a bit of a fun fact if you didn't already know that one. But Electro looks like he benefits so much from all these shock matchups, so it's going to be an interesting one to keep a bit of an eye on this year. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. Feel free to smash that like button, take care, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic day.